Happy CX Day, everybody, and welcome to the second book review of the day. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Customer Understanding, 3 Ways to Put the Customer in Customer Experience and at the Heart of Your Business by Annette, Franz. So let's begin with a summary of the book. So this book provides a framework to facilitate customer understanding. It does this with a few sections. It begins with a section called Building the Business Case. It then moves on to Listen. So this is not only listening to your customers, but also making an effort to compile that into useful, actionable data, and then actually going forwards and compiling action plans as well. We then have the Characterize section. This really focuses on personas, different types of personas, how to create them, best practices. And then we have Empathize, and this section is the bulk of the book. It really looks at journey mapping, the ins and outs of how to do it. Annette brings a wealth of experience with her, and I feel like almost every page has got something really useful on it. So it's actually going to be a hard book for me to distill down into my top 5 takeaways, but hopefully you'll still find this book review very useful. The next section talks about Annette's 6-step process. So I actually have the book here with me, so I'm going to turn to page 122, and I'm going to walk you through what Annette says in her own words about each of these steps. So for step 1 is plan. Annette says, the first step includes all the prep work to get you ready for your workshop, including identifying the personas for which you'll map, outlining the objective, scope, outcomes, and success metrics of the map, and identifying the workshop participants. Step 2 is empathize, and I have to take my hat off to Annette. What I really love about this step is that this is probably what most people would just call mapping, but she's actually calling it empathize. The next step is all about the mapping workshop. Map what customers are doing, thinking, and feeling. Add the data and metrics into the map to help identify moments of truth. Bring the map to life with artifacts, pictures, videos, documents, and assign owners to the customer's steps. There's a certain mind shift that happens when you don't refer to it as mapping and you refer to it as empathize, because the most important part is to really get into the customer's shoes. And of course, if you're doing journey mapping right, you'll have customers there with you anyway. But I think that there's just a certain mind shift that I really love by calling this step empathize. The next step in her 6-step process is step 3, identify. And it says, identify and prioritize moments of truth, research issues, conduct a root cause analysis, develop action plans, and assign owners and deadlines to the plan. Step 4 is introspect. The next step is to look inward by creating a service blueprint and a process map to correspond with the customer journey you've mapped. You can't fix what's happening on the outside, what the customer is experiencing, if you don't fix what's happening behind the scenes. Step 5 is ideate. In this step, you'll conduct future state mapping workshops, ideate solutions to customer and backstage pain points, and design the future state. And then the final step is step 6, implement. The last step in the process is to prototype and test the new design and fail fast. Implement the new experience, share the maps and train employees, close the loop with customers, and update maps to reflect the new current experience. The book then finishes with a set of what I would say are incredibly actionable workshop information. I mean, if you've never done journey mapping before, you could just literally follow what Annette says step by step, and you'll look like a pro doing it. So I think that, we all know there's no real one set way of doing this. Some of the things Annette describes in her book, she uses different terminology, but they're very similar to what I've seen in Outside In, with the above the line and the below the line to represent the customer side, and then the behind the scenes and the process and service blueprint side. So there's no real one set way of doing it, but I really love what Annette's put together in this book. And there's also resources on her website where you can get high quality, large images that she references in her book as well, so that you can kind of get a better feel for how this all looks and works. So this has been a challenge to put together, but here are my top 5 takeaways from this book. So the biggest thing for me was the service blueprint. She says if you don't have one, then you are journey mapping the tool, but you are not journey mapping the process. And this is fantastic because, I mean, some of the work that I've done recently where I work is we've been putting all of the service blueprint together. And the reason we do this is because we want to know what the internal workings are so that when we do our various different types of journeys from the different customers, we can make sure that when we start to narrow down where the issues are, we can actually find them internally and follow that flow through, see who's affected, see who the decision makers are, where there could be handoff issues, all of those kind of breakdowns, and then we can fix it. So the concept of having a service blueprint is a fantastic idea. I can imagine so many people out there would journey map without even having one of these, and so I think that that's really, really important because it's just going to increase your odds of success. She uses this wonderful term, assumptive mapping, process mapping in disguise, the cardinal sin of not involving the customer. Basically, as you can probably guess from the terminology, is just getting a bunch of people together from within the business that think they really know what the customer's going through, but they really don't. And then they make assumptions and make the customer journey. I liked her idea about bringing the journey to life by adding artifacts like images, video, audio, documents, and so forth to the relevant step on the map to add greater understanding of the journey. Previously I've never been a fan of the old school style personas where you just make up an imaginary person that has a number of traits and you can use this silly little cartoon graphic. And what Annette's basically saying is use real people and use real artifacts. Like if you've got a recording of a phone call the customer had when they were angry, those kind of things, that will add so much to bring the journey to life. It stops for many people just being a piece of paper on the wall or a bunch of post-it notes on the wall, and it becomes something that is living and breathing, and suddenly, oh my god, we can see the reality of what our customers are going through. I really liked her idea of using outlier personas with the insight that they provide a different perspective, and so that will help with designing a differentiated experience. She also made the clarity between marketing personas and design personas and their different functions. So that's something else that you'll find that in the characterize section, but I thought that was pretty good information. And then the other thing I really liked as well is when she talks about the clarification between backstage versus behind the scenes. So they sound like the same thing, but the latter are those tools, systems, and processes that are provided by third-party vendors, whereas the backstage is more just what we're doing that the customer doesn't see. So I like that differentiation. And it's important because when you come to resolve any customer issues that have been identified on the map through pain points, you can actually specifically see in a service blueprint who's responsible for them. And so if it's a vendor, then you need to think about how you're going to address that. It's going to be a bit more challenging than if you're just working through that in your own company. So my final thoughts on this book. So the workshops at the end of the book are absolutely incredible. In my opinion, they're worth the price of admission alone. There are wonderful little nuggets sprinkled throughout that are not necessarily related to journey mapping. For example, Annette talks about Goodhart's law. I'd never heard of this. Goodhart's law is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Wow, that's friggin' awesome. Prescriptive analytics. I'd never heard of this. It identifies which set of actions is most likely to optimize a journey for a given customer type. This book is impressive as it starts at a high level, but then it deep dives in the latter half of the book. I actually told Annette that it reminded me of the movie Inception. Any of you who've seen that movie will know that the first half kind of sets up all the rules, and then boom, the second half, it just deep dives and it just goes through different worlds, and it's just absolutely mind-blowing. And I feel the book does the same thing. Very high level, a lot of stuff you probably will already know if you've been in the business for a little while, but then the second half is really fascinating. And I think a good companion read for this book is a book called Buyer Personas by Adele Rivella. And the reason I recommend this is that the characterize section, which is one of the 3 ways to put the customer in customer experience on the front of the book is only 8 pages long. And I know that, obviously Annette probably had to make some hard choices about what to include and what not to include, because if she put all of her knowledge in this book, it probably would have been several volumes long. But I was disappointed that there wasn't more information about the persona side, because I find that really fascinating, especially when you think about things like prescriptive analytics and how that might work with personas as well. I was telling Annette I watched what's it called? Mindhunter on Netflix, and I really like the whole idea of the FBI's behavioral science unit and how they were able to create personas for the different murderers, and then be able to link out predictions as to what they would do and ways to catch those people based on certain traits. So I find the personas thing really fascinating, and I think that the Adele's book would be a good companion piece for that reason. And finally, all I would say is any practitioner, no matter how experienced, will get a lot of value from this book. It's been a long time coming. A lot of people have been waiting for Annette to write this kind of book. She has a fantastic blog, CX Journey, and finally, all of that information is now in one source that you can, take on vacation with you or read in your own time when you want. I read it over the course of about 2 weeks, and I think that there's definitely a lot of rereading in here and a lot of additional deep diving, especially with the workshops as well. This is a book that I'm always going to have by my side when I'm doing journey mapping in the future, and I just have to take my hat off and say this was a fantastic book. So I hope you enjoyed this book review. There's a third one coming later today for CX Day, and if you want to see any books reviewed in the future, just drop me a line at support@ccxpexamsimulator.com. Enjoy the rest of CX Day.